So let's see, Robert. It might tell us that we are live, and I do believe it is live. So welcome, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. Again, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So good to see everyone. Happy Thor's Day to everyone. We just speak favor over us all. Nothing missing, nothing broken. And speaking prosperity, it's not just a word. It is a permanent state of mind. So, Bosto, everyone, have a happy birthday anniversary. And this is the season for giving. So we'll be talking a little bit about that near the end of this. I think Al's put some information on up there. And so we will get into that and talk about Doug. And I am excited about having Mr. Robert V. of over at the Milkyway Soul Tribe channel. And Robert, good to see you. I know you're usually working, and so it's a delight.
Well, thank you for having me on. It is. I got a vacation day. I had to use it. Here I am, and I thought first thing I thought of was, I got a vacation day, and this is where I'm going to spend it with all of you. And Wayne, I'm glad to be on the show because I've been planning this for ever and a day, and yet it never comes on because I'm always working, or that day I'm off and busy because I get so few of them. So here we are. Wonderful.
And what do you do specifically?
I'm an oil line operator, technician, or whatever you want to call it. I operate to easily explain this, you have the oil that comes out of the ground with the big pump jacks. You've probably all seen them. And then after that, it's got to go somewhere. Now you imagine that it comes, if they put it in a tank there, then it has to go somewhere. Well, they run pipelines nowadays. This is a modern thing. You run a pipeline. Otherwise, you'd have to have a truck there to haul each and every load away. And these wells don't produce a couple of drops. They produce, thousands of barrels a day. So you have a pipeline and a pump, and you got water that comes out of the well. You got oil that comes out of the well, and you got gas that comes out of these wells. And then we have pipelines. There's a pipeline for each one of those, and it ships it on down the line, and it goes different places from there. Well, the gas goes to a compressor, a giant compressor building, which I run one of those, and it gets compressed, and then it goes to another site, and that gets compressed down into a liquid at 1,200-1,500 pounds of pressure, and then they can ship that. Now it's all condensed like your propane you'd get at your house, and then it gets condensed as a liquid to go somewhere else. And the water gets sent down to a injection point where it gets pushed back down into the ground again. And needless to say, which is something I found out working out here, is that the water that comes out of the ground from way down under is salty. It's salty as can be. And then of course you got your oil, and there's different types of oil. And out here we have mostly the good sweet oil. Sometimes you get sour oil, which has got the H2S in it, and it's poisonous. And if you breathe that H2S, you could die. But so you got to be careful with that. And so I run the pumps and check the lines and things like that make the oil go down to these facilities in the end that gets refined in the gas you use in your house, and then into the textiles that we use for everything from the bottoms of your soles of your sneakers to the coat, the nylon that you wear in your coat.
Now, they don't tell that side of the story.
No, your cell phone that you hold in your hand is pretty much all made out of plastics. And plastics are made out of oil.
That's true. It's true. And so even in a environment where it's, been so restricted, you keep busy no matter what, it seems like.
Yeah. Every now and then it slows down when you got them foreign countries that liquidate their oil, and oil prices go down to $20 a barrel or something like that. And then everybody panics, because you can't make any money at that price. But these wells, once they get them, each well costs millions of dollars to put in. And, so they have to get a certain price per barrel to get it
Right.
out of the ground. But then once it starts coming out of the ground, it comes out at a phenomenal rate. And after it gets going for a while, then it slows down, and little by little by little, and then it gets to a spot where it just kind of steadily goes, and that could go on for 20, 30 years at that slow rate. So
I know some folks that actually have some farms that get royalties from what they pump out. So interesting. And it's cold up there right now.
Oh yeah, it's 18 degrees today. It's woohoo, it's warm.
Yeah, all right, get the sunglasses, suntan oil. A lot of snow yet, or
yeah, we had a little bit of snow the other day and a big bunch of snow last week or so, and so we got snow on the ground, and the rate the temperature is, it'll be here for a long time.
Well, gotta love that sunshine. That's all I gotta say. Well, it is so good to have you on. Welcome everyone in the chat room, all the moderators. So good to see everybody. Much love to you and everybody else that's out there. Lots of folks. Joyce, Elderberry, Truth Seeker, Lost in Space. So welcome. So good to see you. New Yoda. I know that I saw you earlier, and so
I love our soul tribe. They are such good people.
They are very good.
They're on your shows, in the chat, and they're also on mine, and several others. And they're genuinely good people for the most part. They have good things to say. They send me a lot of nice emails. They say good things. I have great moderators, as you do on your channel, that protect us from them crazy, whatever
They're out there, trolls. Good to see you, dear. And Witch Moon 2073, good to see you. Yeah, we do have I think one of the best groups, and it's been here for, well, I'm going on this channel be 9 years. My original channel, that's 13 years. So and your channel came about, as most people know, kind of out of respect, maybe we can almost say memorializing Brian Barnett, who we called Milky, and he left us way too early, but his memory lives on, and lives on through your channel as well, because it's right there in the title. Hey, Constance, how you doing, darling?
Yeah, I try to uphold his values that he had, or at least embody that in my show, and try to, along with my own, I can't just make it his show because that was his show and his ideas, but I try to embrace what he put out there so that we can carry that on, because he left us with such a good thing to go with. I watch his shows over and over a lot and just listen to the things he said. And then, I base a lot of my stuff on that, but, I have to do my own thing too.
Yep. Yeah. Lucky was my apprentice. And so he's still around, wherever that journey is at. So, yeah. So I like how the channel is growing. I don't get a chance to participate all the time. So would you say that from the time that you decided the calling of starting the channel to where you are today, have you seen a difference in yourself? Have you, what would you give an assessment in I think it's been 2 years, 3 years, something like that?
Yes. So going on 3 years now, or 2 years now, 2 years, 2.5 years. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
And if you haven't subscribed, make sure to subscribe.
Yeah. We're gaining subscribers every day, which is great. But shooting for that 1,000, and then we can maybe do some lives. You can have the phone and do it.
There you go. So let's get him over 1,000, folks. Come on. We can do that.
Working at it hard, yeah. But yeah, I've grown myself tremendously, especially with listening and working at things. I listen to you. Trina gave me a ton of help. Others did too, and And I really tried to work at growing myself, because that's what it's all about. It's growing myself. And then, like you say, I'm on this journey, and you can follow me on my journey, but it's everybody has their own journey. I can't make my journey your journey, but I can share my information with you on how I'm doing my journey. And
Yeah.
and that's the best I can do. And things that I find interesting are, hopefully beneficial to everybody. And take what you will. If you don't like it, turn me off for a while and turn me back on the next day when there's something relevant that you might like. You know what I mean? But just don't say, oh my gosh, you said the wrong word, and unsubscribe, kind of thing. That's not right. That's not how the world works. But people are very influential, and we were talking about this, and it goes throughout history, and how you've been talking about the change in history, and I want to kind of soup this up into how it is affecting our world right now. The other day they were saying that the media was captured by one of the political parties. And we ain't going to mention political parties because I don't really care. They're all the same. It's miserable how it is. But the point is that they've taken over the news, just as history has been taken over by somebody else too. And the things we learn and stuff. And as you know, and everybody kind of probably knows by this time, that I'm a lover of old books. Old information is sometimes not quite as twisted or put in that box yet. Or maybe there was a different outlook on it. There wasn't all these controls over it. They reported it as they seen it, and then they wrote about it. And then they printed it, and nobody cared. Whereas today, we've gone from one end of being free speech to another end. Well, if you're not in that box, we just don't promote it. We'll ban you. We'll shadow ban you. Ooh, you won't get no looks or subscribes, or nobody will listen. You can talk all you want. You got the free speech, but nobody's going to listen to you. And as you go up the ladder to people who have the money, they're not going to invest in you because you're not in the box they want you to be in. And because you're not in that box, you don't get any funding. And so how do you get paid? By being in the box, reporting what they want you to see, doing what they want you to do. And you've talked about this a lot. How come there's this and how come there's that? And now where is all of this? And you went there. You went to the Smithsonian. You've seen the bones. You did the things. And and I found this book here. This is from 1833, and I marked a page in here that is really kind of interesting. And this is going to go. Oops, I hope this is the right one. It's talking about a ruins of a stone city, and now listen to this. This book was written in 1833. The West hadn't been settled yet. The Indians were still roaming wild on the prairies, fighting and scalping, and the rendezvous were still going on. And this is what they have to say. They were I'm just going to skip over a lot of this. And this chapter is the ruins of the city of Olam, discovered in America, of the Peruvian origin. Peruvian is where?
I think it's way down south, if I'm correct.
Yes,
on the other side of that ocean
is South America. So in America, Peruvian origin in America. So that would tell you that the Indians didn't come from the side, go down, and they came up. They would have been coming up. They were surveyed by Captain Del Rio in 1787, an account of which was published in English in 1822. This account describes partly the ruins of a stone city of no less dimensions than 75 miles in circuit, length 32, and breadth with or whatever 12 miles, full of palaces, monuments, statues, and inscriptions. One of the earliest seats of American civilization, about equal to Thebes of ancient Egypt. And I'm thinking, holy cow. This is what have you ever heard of that? You know, where is
And,
this city?
well,
Why are we looking at the ruins of this giant city?
I mean, that's a big city.
Yeah.
70 miles, 75 miles in complete diameter. That's such a huge city.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Palaces, statues. And there's a similar story of what they found in the Grand Canyons.
Mm-hmm.
The early discoveries. And in fact, this is verified as well. There is still a huge gold deposit that's down there that it's forbidden to mine. But I want to go with you. In fact, it's right over on my bookshelf, going along with that piece of history that you just read that has been eviscerated. It's eviscerated. It's not taught. It's not part of the fact that the United States, people think that it was this barren area. I live in an area called right across the river, the Mississippi, in Cahokia, what they call the Cahokia Mounds. Those are actually mounds of a race of Indians that coexisted with the giants.
Yes.
The Ohio Valley, we have numerous, not anymore, they've erased it. Most of it was replete with the mounds of this. So the book that you have there, that's in the printed word. That is probably one of, as I told you, it's probably one of very few books. It's probably a very rare book. I mean, if you got something from 1833, I mean, you know, the United States was not even 50 years old yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
exactly. You know, so
I'm thinking about this. I mean, you know, I think that we still had, wasn't that right after the conclusion of the Second British War, the War of 1812?
Yes.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, in 1833, like I said, they were still having Kit Carson was out there, and they were having rendezvous with the Indians, trading furs, and the Indian Wars really hadn't begun out west at all yet. And you know, I mean, so just take that with a bit. You know, how we just destroyed our history right here in America.
Yeah.
You know,
when you're talking, I know it was Hollywood did a great rendition of that theory, was Cowboy and Aliens. You know, with Harrison Ford and who was the other main guy who played Bond. But anyway, the fact that Daniel
Craig.
Thank you. Good movie, by the way. I mean, it kind of just laid it out that our history has been rewritten. And you and I were talking, a lot of the material that I tried to bring forth is that which is, you know, talks about a different history. And as you and I were pointing out in our discussion before we went live, we're probably talking about something that is probably several 100,000 years old, not 1,000.
Okay, so with that said, I'm going to prove that right now.
Okay,
through this book.
See how we did that, folks? We just segued.
That's right. I love picking something and then segueing into it and then proving my point. Now we're going to go with this book because this is the only book I got that's that you know I can go through. I do have other Chinese books and histories that I have to go through, but it's really hard to dissect all of them and have in front of me. So we're going to go with this, and it says history. This is from this book, History of China Before the Flood. Now, you know, China has, you know, lots of history there. And I've underlined these things so I can just skip through it pretty easily because I did my homework, people. I work at this stuff, you know, just like Wayne does his homework before the show. I do mine
about
too.
3 hours. Yeah, it takes a while.
Yeah, these shows are not, I just don't go there and pick them up. I just sit down. I know everything. I don't just download the information. I have to read the book. I have to skim through it. I have to underline the stuff. I have to print off things. I have to do work. It's called work. So all you can get the information. Then I always suggest, just like you do, go out there yourself and find that. You know, maybe it'll trigger something and look it up. You got the computer, you know, or you got your phone in your hand, your phone. There it is. All the information you want is on that internet somewhere, at least enough to make you say, I want to read a book about it and whatever. And some people ain't great to read the book. Watch a video somewhere. Okay. It says, the author says plainly that all the high hills were under, this is talking, we're going to go back to the flood. Now, they're trying to describe the flood, and the floods with a Z and S, lots of floods. The author says all the high hills under the water in heaven were covered, and that by 15 cubits and upward did the waters prevail, and the mountains were covered. But oh, come on, people. Hang on, I got this. And the waters were covered, the believers and doubters. Okay. And in traditional history of China, which speaks of two great floods, which desolated but did not overflow the land. Get that part. The later flood of Peleg, or Ya, or Yao, I don't even know how to say it. I'm mispronunciation king. Yao in China was caused, as he says, by volcanic eruptions all over Earth, but much less fatal than the flood of Noah or Ut in China. But now we're going to learn something. Historians say during these things, Lu Yu and Lo Pai, whose words are called YT and Yuki, are partially mistranslated by this guy Luxor. These say that the first flood happened under the eighth Ker, or period, called UT. So these are periods of time. The first emperor of it was Chang Sang, about 3,170 years before Christ. So then he goes in and he says, well, the Noah flood took place 1,656 years ago from creation, and therefore 2,344 years before Christ, and with a mistake of about 826 years. So then he goes and he says, we did some checking, and this information might not be accountable by Noah himself, and preserved by the good history was preserved by the Chinese, because they did keep immense records. The flood alluded to the above named historian it is true that it did not overflow the whole earth, but it was such as the waters did not return to their usual channels for a long time. The misery of mankind was extreme. Now get this part. The beast and the serpents were numerous, being driven together by their pursuit of the waters, and also storm and cold, and greatly increased. Ching Sang collected the wandering men to unite against the wild beast. Beast would be mammals, correct? And serpents would be reptiles, I assume. To dress their skins for clothing, and to weave their furs into webs and caps. This emperor was venerated for these beliefs and began the Shai, or dynasty, that lasted 350 years. Let's see, all this would suit very well to the character of Nimrod, whom, with all much inclined to think that the Chinese historian pointed out, instead of any king before the era, was the flood of Noah. Okay, well then it goes on to this other guy, Rafsakine. I don't know what he was important translator of all this. The Chinese nations, who by their records make up the earth much older than does Moses. Okay, and then he goes on to explain the two words "ki" and "she" translated period and dynasty, or family, and some importance. As they now stand translated, they would make the world very old, since no less than 10 ki, or periods, are enumerated. We are in the 10th, wherein 232 Shai, or dynasties of emperors, are said to have ruled in China during a course of get this, 276,480 years before Christ. At the lowest computation, and this is to get this one, 96,962,220 years before Christ at the highest, with many intermediate calculations by various authors. But if the cur, he says, may also mean dynasty, a division of people, it appears to do in some instances that the Shai or age or a tribe or region, the whole Paris compilation will prove false if reduced to a degree of the Hindus. And okay, so when you go into the other religions, they would just reduce it all and say that can't be.
Yeah, and, well, as you were talking, the list of the Sumerian kings, in fact, I'll be getting in that tomorrow. We know that goes through a period of nearly 300,000 years. Which would be coinciding with what your Chinese reference is making it.
Yeah, of the 276,480 years. And isn't that something crazy similar, how that, joins together?
Yeah, because, the Hebrews, they believe that the earth was created in the year 3534 BCE. So the problem when you set that date, and then because Christianity was a made-up religion that borrowed from many, they had to adapt that to give it, validity. But the problem is when you adapt to that 34, 35 BCE, you have to compress history within that period of time. And so the vast majority of people think that we're still in a very recent time. Now, I was telling you, in my meditation, I'm continually seeing, I think that whatever we're under is very recent. I think that this takeover for us as a species, I think it's within the last 400, 500 years. I think it's something took over, and we now have the evidence that during what they call the Puritan, the pre-colonialist period of time, that they literally rewrote history. And that was in correlation to what King James was doing when he assembled the new court to produce a book that could be used as the foundation for this new timeline. Which would make the fact that there never was a Christ, but that you have to have it as a point in the chronology of your timeline. Otherwise, the timeline doesn't work. And you're right. The Chinese, no one gives the Chinese credit in their beliefs, their religion, particularly their records, along with those in India. The same thing that goes in that region that was said to be the second cradle of creation. You take the Indo Valley, and you simply put where Mesopotamia or where the Sumerians came into it. That's where the Sumerians got their knowledge from, was from the East. So they speak of a time of dragons. They speak of a time of reptiles, which goes in with, if you really look at this, then it says clearly that we're not the only, what I would call, sentient species. That there's something else that has been here. I happen to think that they're not gone.
No, and then these stories, like out of the Bible, they were taken from the Sumerian tablets. Which were older. They were already old when they
2,100 years before Abram ever came about.
That's right. So those guys translated them probably first.
Well, where was Yahweh during this time? I mean, that's why I keep on asking folks. It don't make sense. I mean, this guy just suddenly shows up. And he says that he created everything. Now we got to condense the history. And again, when you do that, conversations like yours and mine, if we had the ability to meet in a lodge with many others, we're all going to come to the same conclusion. Something ain't right here. The timelines don't jive.
Oh, I know. Well, and it goes on with this. Now, here's a good one for you. It talks about, goes in Siberia. How come in Siberia they're finding masses of bones? And then they give the degrees, 60 and 70 degree marks, masses of bones of elephants and rhinos. And it's like, wait a minute, they knew this back in 1830, and they knew something was going on that was weird. Now listen to this part. And whales have been found on the highest regions of the mountains are found oceanic remains. Whales have been found in the mountains of Greenland, also in other parts of America far from the ocean. In America, far from the ocean, in 1833, where are you finding this? You know, whales in 1833. So they were exploring out here pretty early, you know.
Something else, you know, when I lived in Colorado, if you go up Interstate 25 and you get into Wyoming and you go off left before you get into Casper, there is a ridge that you can follow. And this is where they find the marine life, the strata layer that you can see. And the interesting thing about the Rocky Mountains in this range is that something happened. You know, as you build a mountain range, you should be able to get the date, and that should be your earliest date. Mm-hmm. Down at the base would be your bottom line date. Mm-hmm. Well, and there's places within that range that it's turned over. It's upside down.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I contend that not too far from you, the Devil's Tower, that's a tree.
Yeah, could be.
It's not.
Well, out here, we have the Badlands, right?
The dinosaur.
Yeah, and we find lots of. I've been out there driving around and taking pictures of stuff of ginormous, 5-foot cross, stumps in the ground. We don't have trees that big out here, and these are stumps. But here's the funny part: they're at the bottom of the hill, or they're at or kind of the middle of the hill, or whatever, the top of the hill, but on top of those is a layer of rock or clay called scoria that we use as like gravel out here. It's a burnt layer. Well, in order to get scoria, which is clay, burnt, cooked, you got to have a lot of temperature. But the scoria is on the top layer, not the bottom layer.
Exactly.
So why is the scoria up there? Then there's a layer, and then you're walking around on the ground and you're seeing all this petrified wood and things like that. But then you look up and you go, oh, it rolled. You can see it sticking out of the mud or the dirt up there, and then as it erodes, it rolls down the hill, and then you find it on the ground. And then you're thinking it came from here, not up there. But then the scoria is on the top. So how did it get up, or how come the scoria is on the top? What cooked it? What cooked the scoria so hot?
I'm thinking of Göbekli Tepe on this, that, when they buried those monuments, and they buried them like, 20 feet into the ground, because they knew, and you can go and check this out, folks. They knew, in fact, Graham has a book on it as well. It's over in my library, is that they saw the comet coming. Mm-hmm. They saw it. I contend that the evidence of that is Genesis 2:1, that if you read that correctly, there was a group of sapiens or humans here before this event, but as you read there, it said that the earth was burnt. Mm-hmm. So there wasn't anything green upon the land. That describes to me as an impact, whether it was a comet, whether it was an asteroid or meteorite, which would then had bring the upheaval, I think, as we now know, as our science can tell, that if wherever this impact zone was, could have been in Russia, could have been in the United States, that would have affected the rest of the whole world.
Yeah. And that's the thing too. Over thousands of years, there could have been multiple impacts too, because I look at it this way. Okay, I've looked at this petrified wood many a times, and I've been around long enough, as you have, to observe a lot of things. So if I have a piece of wood and I put it outside, how many years before that piece of wood rots? Right?
Well, number one, exactly. It's going to rot before it's going to turn to stone, right?
That's right. So what makes it not rot?
Exactly.
No. Do you know?
What makes it rot?
Not rot.
Not rot. Now, tell me.
When it gets burnt. Now, when I was
like
a kid,
charcoal, coal.
yeah, we had fire go through our backwoods or whatever and burnt all the trees down. Yet I can go back out there right now, and there's trees still standing that were burnt to a crisp, and they're still there. And they're still there because they all turned to kind of charcoaly. Well, how is that? There's logs in the woods that you go out there and it's charcoaly because it got burnt. And okay, so what if there was a massive fire in one of these events, and it cooked all the trees, knocked them all over? Because every time I go out there, I see stumps. I don't see massive trees standing. I see stumps, like somebody whacked them.
Well, that would imply that the heat was coming down from above.
Yeah, it burnt everything.
So the atmosphere would have to have been.
Yes, it would have been having to be really hot. It cooked everything. Then it got covered by, water or mud or something like that, and it preserved it. Because even if you put a tree in a swamp, guess what? It rots out even faster, almost. As soon as it hits the air or something at some point or another, swamp dries up, all the trees turn punky and they die and they fall in the water. And, once in a while, if it's in cold water, it preserves for many years or whatever. But needless to say, it rots out. And if you had it all charcoaly, it would last for many years and it would get the stuff. And then today, would you be able to look at that tree, which is now a rock, and say, oh, that got burnt in a fire? No,
most likely not. No,
it looked like a piece of rock. What the heck,
I mean, I've been to the petrified forests, as down in Arizona, and and as you're talking, it's like, yeah.
So it's just one of these things. But here, to go prove my point, it says here, the Chinese history, it is true, given the account of many floods which have ruined the whole track of the country, as many as 65, one of which in the year 185 before Christ is said form the body of water called the Yellow Sea, situated between the Korea and China, or Korea. They spell Korea with a C. 65 of those floods, so they're recounting 65 floods. And that's the thing, is how many floods have there been? Our time span that we've been on this earth has been, recording things is like this much compared to what they're telling us. So, we're talking about 6,000 years. They're talking about 276,480 years.
And at one point, I think they said about 96 million.
Yeah, exactly. And
it's like, okay,
records past that. Then it gives account of the state of mankind before the flood. Now, this is kind of interesting. Now, listen to this. It says that the history of China gives an account of the state of mankind before the flood, or the Yuti, or Noah, and represents them as having been happy, ruled by benevolent monarchs who took nothing and gave much. The world submitted to their virtues and good laws, and there were no crowns, but long hair, never made war, and put no one to death. But so
now these were the rulers at that time.
Yeah, before the floods. Yeah, so take it with, and it says it contradicts Moses's idea of there being, the people are warring. But then again,
hell on earth.
Yeah, is he talking about a time after one of those other floods, and then there was hell on earth? And that's, it's like right now. Right now, people are saying, oh, this is terrible. There's going to be a war. There's going to be this or that. And if there was a giant flood.
Well, they're preparing for Armageddon.
Yeah, exactly. And who are they going to blame it? Oh, it's a God thing. God came down and
God's punishing man.
Yeah, well, you would just jump to that conclusion, not saying, well, man did it. Some man pushed the button and he ruined the world. You know what I'm saying?
You're triggering things that, a conversation I had with a rabbi, and, an Orthodox rabbi. But the point, he was the one that alerted to me that this thing that we use as the foundation of our morals, our values, our principles, which come from the Old Testament. The book of Deuteronomy was more referenced in the founding fathers of America than any other book ever mentioned. Mm-hmm. But as he said, it's a spell.
Yeah.
And that's what it is. And as you're talking, this is actions of a species that I can't say that are sentient doing on there, because there's no common sense now. That's the thing I keep seeing.
Yeah.
And it triggers the thought going in saying, okay, all of our references is to Noah, Moses, but yet not one person in the West could ever talk to an ancient Chinese philosopher or historian and make reference to their work at all. The closest I have to it is the Colburn Bible, the Bronze Book. I mean, that is close, and it tells me how neglectful we have been in really truly understanding this group of humans that have been here for a very long time. They're not even mentioned in the creation story.
No. Yes, no. I got a part in here where it talks about this too that I got underlined somewhere. That's the next page. But you're right. These people are been shut out. Like I do a lot of the Indian stuff with South America because I think there's a lot there that's been uncovered or not uncovered. And the thing is when they found the New World, did the religions of the world already kind of know that there was something over here, and they wanted to send men over here to destroy it before it corrupted their religion?
Well, they decimated that whole culture, that whole race of people. Mesoamericans, they were sacrificed to the church.
Yes, and they were converted, they were sacrificed, and what worse, all their codexes, everything but a few were destroyed. Giant pile. They had libraries full of stuff. Everything was to be destroyed so it didn't get in the hands of regular people, somewhere in the future to be translated to say, hey, you guys, these guys were, something different was happening here.
Boy, now you're talking. It's got me on, the library at Constantinople. They said that the Tigris River ran for weeks black because of the documents, the parchments that they were throwing into the river and the ink. Then we've got the destruction of the Library of Alexandria. History being wiped out.
Yeah.
And now we substitute belief systems and we will kill each other. Defying anyone to go against our beliefs because we have history on our side.
Yeah, exactly.
Whose history?
Exactly. Here's a group of people when now remember 1833 in South America. The same it's talking about this author, a race of ancient people in South America called I'm going to mispronounce this badly, the Zapoquitas, boast of being Andaluvian in America, Antediluvian, and having built the city of Coatlan. That's probably wrong. Anyway, so named because of the city was founded, a place which swarmed with serpents, therefore named Snake City or Coatlan, built 327 years before the flood, and the flood remnants, blah blah blah, and it's called
Now these were reptiles?
Serpents? They were talking about Andaluvian city. Yes. So I looked this up, and if I can share my screen,
I think you can.
I will. No, it says you got to give me permission. Here. I will.
Excuse me.
That's right.
Let's see.
Okay.
There we go.
Okay. And I did look this up. So this is a real city, and there you go. I try to look these things up. Known as the Cloud People. See, and they dwelt in highlands of central Mesoamerica. The original developments grew in agriculture, blah, blah, blah. And 500 BC, demise of civilization, had significant settlements beyond their capital. And because they were high up, I think they did survive the thing.
Yeah.
And it also talks about their religion, which I found interesting. Mesoamerican religion, they had different gods for different things. But here you get down to this one here, God of Earth's center, I'm going to say this wrong, Huchana. You can help me pronounce it if you can see that.
I think it's Huchana.
Huchana, mother goddess, also satiated with hunting and fishing. See, they used, you were talking about how come they're always men. There's a girl, know. Did you know they all when I got on this, actually, I started out listening to that at some point in time, there's a celebration in Brazil known as the Queen of Heaven celebration.
Interesting.
But before the church came, it was the Queen of Heaven celebration, because the Queen of Heaven came down and gave them corn and beans and gave them technology and things like that to start their civilization. But when Christianity came, they overran that and named it, said the Queen of Heaven is the Virgin Mary, and now they refer to it as, Queen of Heaven celebrating the Virgin Mary. Same thing. But here's the Inanna. She was the
Astarte.
Yep. And this was some of the stuff, and I could relate because she says she meaning sky. So was she the same lady that went around the world, giving information to these people that wasn't untouched in South America like it was touched in all the other regions of the world?
I love that saying there. I am Inanna, heading to the east. It was in the one that, but there she is. Yeah, a lot of ones say that that's also depiction of Lilith as well. So it's a question of, are we speaking of one and the same? Because again, Lilith has been she has been venerated and attacked by the religions of the world, which tells me, I think that we well know, and here it is. This is the goddess Ishtar.
Ishtar, yeah, and she's also known as the goddess Ishtar. But if you can see right down here, blew this up, because you can see that she's giant-like, and here this looks like a lion. She's got her foot on a lion, and this lion is sitting on a cart, and this cart's big enough to hold her and the lion, and I'm thinking, well, she's pretty large for that, you know what I'm saying? So,
and look at her body as well. It's to me, it's a hybrid.
Yes.
It's human, and it's obviously what we would define in our conversation here of a divine origin of the gods.
She's winged. Yeah.
Yep.
I don't know what these little things are behind her, though, if that's supposed to mean anything, but well, like I said, it's these little pictures make you start thinking of what the heck is going on. So anyway, that was my little part to share with you on that.
I want to get back on the Mesoamericans, particularly in South America. So, and Patagonia. Do you know what Patagonia is known for?
Yeah, the giants.
The last of the giants, the redhead giants.
Was down there, and he recorded in his logs. Was it Cortez? No, it was one of them guys. I can't remember which guy, but he recorded in his logs of meeting up with the giants. And there's pictures on those old maps with the giant, and
the giants are there. And it was also one other explorer that had encountered, but again, this is the part, as I was saying yesterday, of history. It's like they've taken 500,000 years and just ripped it out.
Yeah,
it didn't happen. We got story of the giants, but
but yet in the Bible, this is the next page we're talking about. They kind of name off these things, and then you have to twist it a little bit and start thinking about how did they twist it back in the day. And it says the very names of the word Shem, Ham, and Japheth were in the language of Noah. And then it says Ham was in the very name of his color or complexion. And then it goes on to say that the word Ham signifies which is burnt or black. And then it goes on to say prosperity spread for them. And then it says Shem therefore must have been a man of a red color, derived from the complexion of the first man, Adam. And then when they had Japheth, or Andaluvians were of a red or copper colored complexion. Joseph or Adam were first men. So there you go, was a red man, made of the red earth, called virgin earth because of the beauty and pureness. And then signifies a red color. But then it goes on. Now these people knew things. Oh, Japheth was a white guy. And I got a page on here too about him. Oh, it says here, because he was no sooner, therefore, was many purpose that the news of a birth of the third son carried to Noah than him being anxious and embrace him, saw the amazement and that it was diverse from the other two, from all of mankind, having not less the antiphony and complexion with any other human race, and being of the ecstasy at sight so fair and rudely infant, beauty white and transparent complexion. And he cried out, while under the influence of his joy, surprised Jeff. So he had three sons, one black, one red, and one white. Is that just not the craziest?
And I want to say, Yosley, I want to say you're talking about the story of Jesus and his father was a carpenter. That's a lie, folks. And I'm going to tell you why it's a lie. It's a deception. You see, if you study first century Jerusalem in that particular area, there were no trees. The story is, if you actually read the story, is that if he existed, he was a stonemason. And stonemasons were considered carpenters. So, again, hey, we have Raised by Giants, Ryder Lee. Good to see you, my friend.
Always nice to see Ryder Lee.
Oh, I love Ryder. And I actually am going to be with Chris Matthews. I think it's January 4th. So looking forward to that.
Awesome.
So,
but
I want to stay focused on Noah for a second here, because if you read the story of Noah from the Epic of Gilgamesh, and then you read it from, where the Torah is, the thing about Noah is that Lamech never did say that he was his son. In fact, he accused his wife of having sex with the angels, because Noah supposedly actually was of a shining origin. In other words, his skin literally emanated light. So,
so these people that are writing this book in 1833, they're scientists. They're not stupid, even though they try to fool us with stupid stuff now.
I mean, most high school graduates cannot pass the elementary test for graduation.
Oh, yeah. So listen to this thought here. Much has been written to establish the doctrine and influence of climate and food. This is 1833, producing vast extremes between fair and rudely white and jet black, but the mode of reasoning to establish the origin of human complexion, we imagine very inclusive and unsatisfactory. It is found that no distance of space, lapse of ages, and change of diet or of countries can possibly remove the leopard spots or change the Ethiopian skin. No lapse of ages has been known to change a white man and his prosperity to an exact hue or shape of an African. Although the hottest rays of the burning climate of Libya have been scorching him for ages unnumbered, and the soil has fed him, and the roots and the berries and equal in length of time, he is still, however, a white man.
It's just a fact. It is. I mean,
and but that's the thing. You don't change something. You can't change. I had this discussion with a buddy of mine. You can't change a frog into a horse. You can't but you could change a horse into a smaller horse or a larger horse, or you could change a little fish into a bigger fish maybe, but you can't change a fish into a whale. It's a mammal. It's different. Just like you can't change a pig into a dog. It's totally different animal. You could change a pig into a feral pig. We all know that, or a feral pig into a domestic pig, or you could shape them into different things, unless this is the unless thing. You start doing genetic manipulations at the cellular genetic XY chromosome levels.
Well, now you're starting to talk about all that. I know we got a person in here who's, Christian, and that's fine. We understand that there's a lot of different beliefs in here. But now we get into this fact that there has been, and the modern day evidence shows that there were, in fact, the only thing you could title them as scientists that were geneticists.
Yeah.
I mean, I was hearing today, and I don't know if you heard it with Celine Dion, what she's dealing with, but so what she is being inflicted with happens to 1 in a million people, humans. But in this story that I was reading, they went on to comment that modern science today still has only figured out about 5% of what really makes these bodies work.
Yeah.
And a lot of that is wrong. And, I have contended, Robert, over and over again. They messed with us. I believe that this has been recent again. I mean, this is where we get the folklore and the stories of human abductions. In fact, any book that's out there, sacred book, whether it's the Quran, the Bible, the Vedic, all have similar stories of human abductions by angels, grays. But it would seem, and here this is going to sound a little bit weird, but yet it's very true. So if God created man, right, in his image, why was the necessity for circumcision some 3,000 years later?
Yeah. Oops, I made a mistake.
Oops, I didn't quite get that one figured out. And so I was meditating this morning and I started laughing because one of my spirit guides came in and he says, "You've actually got this right." And I said, because I hadn't actually said anything. And he said, "He's not really good at being God. He's still learning." And I went, yeah, just like us. We're still learning. I contend that if we knew our history, how much further advanced would we be, Robert? How much more, instead of regressing now in intelligence scores, now we're below 90. The average human lifespan is less than 80 years. And yet within that, we have no more wisdom. We have no more, I think that as Steiner said, we have lost our wisdom score. And I think that is a direct interference of these geneticists. I think they're still working on us.
Yeah.
Because, so let me ask you, how would you put then Neanderthal, Cro-Magnon, Denisovans, and the other genesis of Homo, man? How do they fit into all this? Because they were sentient, weren't they?
Yeah, I imagine.
They say, well, they didn't have command of the vocal box. Apparently, this is something that developed about 70,000 years ago. But then it's again, how did they communicate? They were thriving cities. We have found cave complexes that were complex, required engineering degrees. How did they know where the structure stress beams to be? How did they know of what type of rock could be more conducive for safety? It doesn't make sense. I mean, if you had the Bronze Age, the Copper Age before the Iron Age, to work with copper and bronze requires more technology than working with iron. So how do you fit that in?
Well, appears to me that there was I've been thinking a lot about the Iron Age, and that to me says there was a reason why they didn't use iron.
What could that be? That's a very interesting point. I love this.
Why did they avoid it? I mean, obviously they had iron and they knew about iron. They didn't use iron. They used mixed metals, brass, copper. They worked really hard and had used the hard method to use copper versus iron, which could have been really easily used. Is there a reason for that? Something that was lost, but they all knew about. Kind of like, like a tradition. Hey, we put up a Christmas tree, but do you know why we put up the Christmas tree? Who started the Christmas tree? I don't know, but we put one
pagans.
Up. Yeah, but why do we put it up? Because we do. It's just what we do. And, I mean, and but there had to be a reason. I mean, look at, somebody said when we were doing the Mayans and the Incans and stuff, that they were using gold and silver, and they had all this gold and silver and, stuff like that, copper tools and things, a bit of that. But there was no match for the iron swords of the Spaniards and their body armor that they wore.
No.
And then they said, well, maybe they just didn't know about metal, But I'm like, but then they would have had to melt gold and silver. They couldn't figure out iron. What? You see what I'm saying?
Oh man! Oh, and it gets more ridiculous because, as you were talking though, in the book Biocentrism, they were talking about the fact that also the Earth's atmosphere. Today, our atmosphere is not what it was 1,000 years ago. Our the magnetosphere is collapsing. So we're in the midst right now. This, as you're listening to us, we are in a magnetic drift. Yeah. It's happening.
Well, here's the thing. Are we the new species? Listen,
or are we the old ones
that just survived?
Yeah.
Here's the thing. This is for everybody who's in Cincinnati. And it talks about in Cincinnati. This is the part where I found the bone. Cincinnati, there's a borrowed mound. This was in 1833. People, a borrowed mound of human bones situated exactly at the edge of a bank that overlooks the lower town. The principal streets leading from the water is cut through it and exposes a stratus and remains to every person passing by. 7 tiers of skeletons lay plainly in sight where the barrows was carved away, and being undetermined among the earth thus fallen down were found several stone hatchets, pieces of pottery, and a flute made of great bone of a human leg. This is very curious instrument, and beautifully carved figurines represent birds, squirrels, small animals, and perforated holes, in the old German manner, which, when breathed into, emitted tones of great melody. Among them, modern Indians, no such instrument has ever been found at this time. And then they say humans. They also found among the ruins valuable relics brought to light, among which were human double teeth, which on a moderate calculations bespoke men as large again as the present race. Also some brass rings, which were considered exceedingly curious, and an instance of which is similar to the one before mentioned in this work, iron rings, as we have before mentioned, and anciently among the Britons. So here they are making iron and brass rings. So they had use of iron, they had use of brass, they had humans with double teeth, and they had giant bones. So
I've seen them.
Yeah.
And
that was right there in Cincinnati. But do you think that there's today? No. I mean,
no.
Exposed.
Them bones be gone.
Yeah, exposed for all 7 tiers. Exposed, so all could see. And then somebody in Washington was saying, let's get the place called the Smithsonian, and then we can dispose of all of that.
And they did. They've admitted to it.
Yeah.
And the last I read, they admitted to over 20,000 bones that they crushed.
Yeah.
God, Robert, it's this hour just gone. You have to come back, man. You got to come back. This is Wayne, do a show on circumcision, please. People have no idea what it really means or does. Ain't that the truth? Yeah. I got a good joke on that one, though, Ryder. You heard when Abraham came back down off the mountain and he comes to his chief servant, and the servant says, well, how did it go, master? And he said, well, it's fine. He said, I made a good deal with that dude. In fact, he's going to make us rich. And the head slave says, well, I'm just a slave. He says, no, he says, it's in it for you. Well, this is good news. What do we have to do? He said, well, that's the catch. He says, the thing you have to do is that you have to snip that skin off. And that's when it said that was the first split. That's when the slave said, like hell. So anyway, this has been, yes, everyone help out Doug Stack. We'll talk more about Doug tomorrow and help him out as well. Thank you, Al, for putting that up there as well. And everyone, thank you in the chat room. We welcome all different points of view. This is how we grow. This is how we learn. Robert, you have brought a delightful conversation. I mean, the hour just went like this. I mean, It sounded like we just started, and it was like, okay. I have thoroughly enjoyed this, my friend. I really have. I hope you come back on.
I will. I'll let you know when I got my next vacation day.
Okay. All right. Hurry up.
Right.
And everyone, thank you for your support. Make sure to subscribe to Robert's channel. Let's get him over 1,000 so we can get those things. So you can actually do a live mobile show, right? Is that the threshold now?
Yeah.
Okay, let's get that going. And much love to all of you. You are just beautiful people. And tune in tomorrow. We're going to pick this really up. It's interesting how it's synchronicity here. Because again, my contention is the modern day belief systems are basically less than 500 years old, folks. Something happened about 500 years ago, right about then, and it altered us. Our history is not history. It's all make-believe. And that goes for every religion that's out there. People find that offensive. That's cool, but I only contend this. Show me one religion that's been successful. Robert, man, continued success. Speak prosperity over you, my friend.
Thank you. You too. Much favor to everybody. Be the frequency you want to receive, of course.
There we go. And Brian, we love you, brother. We're remembering you. And that when you remember Brian, and I love it, Robert, that you have the Milkyway Soul channel, that it brings us to memory with our good friend Brian. So, buddy, stay with me, everyone. We'll see you tomorrow. Thank you for tuning in, and thank you for being part of this journey. You're beautiful. Much peace to you all. Until we meet again.